Welcome back. This is something a little different. It's a much longer piece, kind of a short story, uh, but with a bit of a poetic feel to it. It's based on some real events. Not all happened to the same people. The main character, Ed, is named for an old friend of mine who passed away about a year ago. And this is not his story, but I used his name and some of who he was back in the day to inform the character. But the things in it happened to other people. So, I'm going to read it for you now. It's called Bikers Hold On. Ed felt the October wind cutting through his jeans. Those old Lee riders, now pale, worn remnants of the required outfit of his biker days. The wind picked at the ache of 50 years, dredging up memories of running the weeds on a drunken triumph, recalled in a stiffened right knee. The chronic backache came from a showdown in the back of the St. V over bad weed and some related nonsense. He was still Crazy Ed back then, a name he took a shine to for a lot of years until it got in the way of a new beginning. The cold brought it back. Bikers hold on. The cold and aching took him back to living with Shelley, a duplex in the village, a rental. He left everything behind, the old life for most of it, and the crazy moniker as much as he could. 2 years in, and at least he thought he had it happening. It was still running, but staying shy of old connections, old haunts, living the straight life. He worked a straight job, making safe friends, safe plans. For over a year, he was just Ed, with Crazy making a brief appearance from the bottom of a bottle of Jack from time to time. Bikers hold on. Thursday afternoon and done early. He picked up some shifts driving for a dry cleaner on the industrial line, swapping out uniforms and entry rugs at auto shops and factories. He dropped off his incoming at the plant, turned in his truck, then picked up some fresh rye bread from Robleski's before heading home. Shelley loved their rye. But she was having none of it. She was scared. She spoke from the scared. Somebody knocked on the door. I answered and this big guy walked in. He just walked in, claimed he was a friend of yours. Said he needed to leave some stuff here. Claimed it would be okay with you. He'd come back for it later. Shelley paced, waved her arms. Her voice shook. He looked tough. He looked bad. He was flying colors. 1%er colors like the ones you got in the basement. I was so scared I didn't know what to do. Ed listened, sorting things in his mind. Bikers hold on. The stuff was a hockey bag in the front hall. She hadn't opened it. Good call. Ed knew. George, most likely, one of George's guys, doing a deal that was too sketchy to show up to with the goods. Get down to it enough to be sure, then retrieve the main event from a safe house. Gotta see the money up front, you know. Ed hadn't spoken to any of the old crew in over a year. He was cagey about what he told and to who. Still, George knew where he was. Knew she was scared, counted on it. Bikers hold on. Ed opened the bag. Kilo bricks of compressed weed, wrapped in construction paper, tied with twine. Back in the day, this stuff came up in cattle cars, deadheading from feedlots in Minnesota. Underneath a false floor covered in cow shit, nobody's going to mess with it and nobody's going to look. George would be sending it out by the brick for fast cash to whoever would pay. George came back. And what the fuck? What are you pissed about? You know I'm going to give you an end. Ed wasn't going to push it. Somebody else in the mix at the moment. Shelley, watching from the hall, door half closed. She knew enough to be scared, but she didn't know George, not at all. She'd imagined, but didn't know if she had. Well, Ed knew. He took the half break. Bikers hold on. A lot can happen in 2 months. Shelley moved out. Didn't want to, she said. Cared about him, she said. But in the end, what might be was too much to get past. Ed couldn't argue. Lost himself for a while, then pulled it together in his way. Got a line on a job out west. Sold most things. Packed some others in his dad's basement. Tied the rest onto the sissy bar of his bike. Moved out to Terry's in Grand Marais. On a cold night in early October, Crazy Ed came back. He came back cold, sober. Paid a visit to Gypsy. Then a couple of others. Tracked George down to the St. V. There were words, then more than words. Some things are not negotiable. Who needs to be safe? Who must be left alone? And the consequences of violating such things must sometimes be physically reinforced. Ed had the plan, but Crazy Ed made his bones. Took a few hits, left his mark where he needed to. George got in a few hits of his own, cracked some ribs in Ed's lower back. Crazy brought a knife for punctuation, but Ed left it in his pocket. The Crazy rep was earned. He was the weapon. He left George in the weeds, still breathing, but in no shape to come after him or anyone else anytime soon. By dawn the next day, Ed was on the road, riding hurt, but not for the first time. Somewhere in a rest stop near Swift Current, the pain in the ribs got to him. He hooked down some painkillers, lay down on a picnic table near the river, nodding out. Half an hour in, the dream came, like a morning radio pushing the news. Some guy found dead behind a Winnipeg hotel just this morning. Cold night. Maybe he froze to death. 2 more hours, he pulled it together. Dreams faded into the background, but he couldn't shake the thought. What did he leave behind? What's the story on this biker by the side of a road in the middle of the prairie? Sometimes you got nothing. The last few months replayed till the first 3 threads of sunset. Crazy Ed looked off into the ending of the day, stood down, then walked away. Ed watched him go. Maybe it was time. He rode on into Calgary alone. Fresh start, new beginning. Maybe. You never know. Take the shot. Let the past stay past. Bikers hold on. Sometimes the cold remembers. That's the end. Bikers hold on. Let me know what you think.